Hi, Adriana. Welcome to Talk with the Merion West.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good, good. For those who don't know you and what happens which is the subject of our discussion, could you introduce yourself a little bit and let us know what happened?
Yeah, so I'm a student at Syracuse University. I'm also a special correspondent at LifeSet, and I wrote a story titled Why Institutional Racism is a Myth, which led to me being fired from the Daily Orange, our on campus student run newspaper. They cited racist undertones in my writing and said that I was promoting harmful views and decided that they were going to terminate me.
Um, so I read your interview with Fox. They linked your column, which is in another website right now. I think it's LifeZ. We're going to embed it so people could read and for themselves. But I tried to search the Daily Orange and I couldn't find your article, your op-ed. Did they remove it from there?
The op-ed was originally published in LifeSet, and it had nothing to do with the Daily Orange, which was even more confusing that they would fire me over something that isn't at all related to their publication.
So you were fired from your job not because of what you published there, but because something you published in another platform.
Yes, exactly.
So let's go to your op-ed or column. You're studying journalism, so you're not amateur or naive to how to write a column. And read your column. It's a very professionally put together. You cite sources, statistics. It's a well presented view. And in the world of journalism, if I disagree with you, the best thing to do is to write a counter argument, and try to show you why you're missing, what are you missing, why are you wrong or so. But this does not that does this. No, I'm trying to tell our audience that it was not a rant that you wrote, just down. It's a very professional, put together, science-based piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I used statistics from a scientific journal as well as FBI crime statistics that are reported by the police departments themselves. It wasn't an angry rant. It was certainly backed by facts and statistics. And it's not a new argument either. This has been used by many other conservatives to prove their point.
No, it's not new, and again, it's a very well put together. Even the language is very, very tempered and neutral. I read it a couple of times. I still cannot find what's the outrageous point, unless someone says you're not allowed to say things like that, which is a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Most people will have gone for blanket "you're racist" statements, so I guess the ultimate point is I'm not allowed to speak on this topic or I'm misinformed, although I haven't had much evidence sent to me proving exactly why I'm wrong, just saying that I'm wrong.
No, and they just jump to canceling and putting it out, which is, for a journalist in a campus, it's some kind of a hard hit lesson for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the decision by the Daily Orange doesn't just affect me as a writer, it affects me as a student because all of my peers have band together to try to cancel me, as they say. It's definitely been a hard hit for me socially as well. I've gotten lots of hateful and nasty, threatening messages. So it's definitely not something that I could be easily removed from.
So you're studying journalism, and this happens to you on a campus. How your prospect is changing about the profession you're trying to embark in life.
It's definitely shown me the dark side of journalism and just how cutthroat and how exclusive it can be. It hasn't changed my mind at all. If anything, it's made me more determined that this is the career path that I want to go down. But it's definitely opened my eyes to the bias that can come with journalism and reporting.
Could you walk us through about the reactions that you got, the atmosphere, friends, colleagues, campus? Again, you didn't wrote an angry brand. It's a very well piece based on some facts, and you put your views there in a very tempered manner.
Yeah, so the response I got was pretty immediately anger. A lot of people messaged me the day after it was posted to say that I'm racist or to threaten to assault me as soon as they saw me on campus. And since then, I have gotten a lot of supportive messages as well, which I'm so thankful for. A lot of people have either agreed with my stance or disagreed, but still believed that I had the right to say it. And I'm really grateful to those that have supported me, but it's definitely been a mixed bag of um, responses. I've had the good and the bad.
Um, was it something you ever encountered in your studying as a journalist, things that happens to people like that?
Um, Definitely, especially on campus. You know, a lot of professors are very liberal and they don't do a good job of hiding their bias. So, conservative censorship is something that happens often both in the real journalist world and on campus. So, it's something that I'm unfortunately very used to.
So while um, after this experience that you had, you look at the coverage about this whole unrest in across the United States. What's your observation? What do you see? How media is handling it? You're in different position now that you before. Um, Now it's very different because you have a different angle because you have been censored. Your freedom of speech has been taken away from you. So from that point of view, from that angle, how do you see media coverage of the unrest inside the United States?
I definitely think that journalist integrity is at an all-time low. You can post pretty much anything, whether or not it's factual, whether or not it's backed by truth, and expect a good response, especially from the left side. I've noticed so much incorrect statements or statements that lack context in its entirety, and yet there isn't backlash because they're saying the narrative that the progressive left wants you to have. It's highly unfortunate.
Um, One other thing that I noticed, I don't know if you agree with that, or I just like to know what your view is. There was a time that, at least mainstream media, that keeping two sides of a story was very important for them. Let's have someone from the other side and say what they say. You don't see that much anymore now. So as if the audience demands that we don't want to hear the other side. We just want to hear this side.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we've allowed the media to become so polarized and so one-sided that there is no discussion, there is no opportunity for dissent and debate and engagement in the journalism community. I would love to read stories that disagree with what I say and that are backed by statistical evidence rather than just blanket insults. Unfortunately, that's not something that's happened, and that's a side that the Daily Orange has chosen not to take, as well as many other news outlets, both big and small.
Um, I read the statement, I think, or reaction from the chief editor of Daily Orange. What kind of a message gives to their readers that, we don't tolerate anything, even if it's a well-reasoned piece?
Yeah, it's definitely sent a dangerous message across campus. It says that if you don't agree with our views, we have the right to fire you and you have the right to censor your voice. And it's such a dangerous thing to say too, because even with them hiring a new conservative columnist, like they said in the Fox article, it really is dangerous because they've proven to every conservative columnist that they have that if you say something that opposes us, we will shut down your voice and we will make you an outcast on campus. It's such a terrible thing to do.
So you apparently had, as a conservative writer or as a conservative person, you had back and forth before this incident in the campus. Could you tell us a little about that? What kind of culture you're experiencing there?
Absolutely. So both myself and other campus conservatives, I've written other pieces about Ben Shapiro coming to campus and other pieces regarding protests that have happened around campus that have been met with some backlash as well. People have called me a fascist and a Nazi, among other things, which is just so untrue. But again, if you challenge the narrative pushed by the left, that's immediately what you're called. And then other students have had it far worse than I have. We've had conservative organizations shut down on campus or been denied to have registered student organization status because they are conservative and because they believe in the US Constitution. We've had speakers blocked from campus because they're deemed a white supremacist, which is just so untrue. It's absolutely ridiculous. And professors and students alike harass and target conservative students, and they're met with no repercussions.
Um, since you experience being in the campus with these people, um, do they have any idea that freedom of speech was actually a left idea, and leftists believed in freedom of speech? Now they are coming to the no freedom of speech, or selected freedom of speech, if we may call it.
Yeah, I think that the general idea is that free speech exists, but not on college campus, and college campuses are allowed to make their own exclusionary rules of surrounding speech that they can block and censor things as they want to, which I suppose is legally true, but it's so morally wrong. College campuses are the birthplace of so many movements and are supposed to be safe havens for free speech and for dialogue, and they just completely ignore the historical importance of college campuses on the topic of free speech.
Um, I know you still, have a career ahead of you and lots of things to go through. But at this stage, how do you think it should be done about this atmosphere in college campus?
Um, I definitely think that there should be more openness. We should be more willing to engage in dissent, to argue and debate rather than immediately silence the opposition. There shouldn't be such polarization where if you don't agree with the personal views of your editors, you get fired. Dissent should be welcomed and widely encouraged, and it's unfortunate that it's not.
It's again, it baffles me. We are talking about academic area, which is a place for debate and discussion and different views. And this is the only place that they should have different views, because
Yeah.
they are going to examine and see what's happening in society. But this is the one that so polarized that you're not allowed to have even certain views, let alone speaking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even professors have jumped on board to celebrate me being fired or to send me 10 to 12 studies at a time trying to disprove my argument, although they aren't directly related to what I'm saying at all and they don't disprove my argument. But it definitely is just such a bandwagon effect of having people jump on board to try to prove you wrong and then fail to do so, but act like they're doing some noble act.
Let's, for those who haven't had a chance to read your column, we put it again, we put the URL for them to follow, but give us your thoughts and reasoning from from top to down to see what's your argument.
So my argument is that there was a study published in late 2019 that shows there are no racial targetings within policing. A lot of people have tried to argue against this by saying that the researchers, prove themselves wrong or they disagree with their original findings, but that's not true. That's a huge misconception about their research. They had two people write corrections to it that have since been responded to by the original researchers who stand by their work and stand by the idea that there is no racial disparity within policing. From that point, I went into FBI statistics that show that white people are more likely to be shot by the police than Black Americans. And then I went into the argument that we shouldn't be using overall population rates to be talking about racial crime within the US. We should be using interaction rates because that provides much more context to the argument. It shows how many interactions people actually have with the police because obviously you're more likely to have a bad reaction if you have an increased reaction. And we see that Black Americans commit 50% of all homicides and robberies. So it makes sense that they're seeing more interaction with the police because they are interacting more with the police.
I went through checked the resources that you put, the sources of your story, and the study is not about proving a policy or anything. It says these are the numbers, and the numbers says this. So the reality or facts are, these are about interactions, not just about crime rates or anything. Um, why? Again, I don't understand it. This is a if I'm in any kind of position to talk with the conversation with the mayor, governor, police, this point helps us to build up on something. Why we just have to eliminate it?
Yeah, it makes no sense to eliminate it if we want to attack the issue of police brutality and wrongfulness in policing, we should use every possible argument that we have. And the real argument is that it's not an issue of racial discrimination in policing, it's an issue of poor training. And it really limits the solutions that we offer, and it limits the ability to solve these problems if we just go in with the mindset that the police are racist, because it's not at all the case.
So in some way, the arguments, if we follow this reasoning, I think the arguments we see on, defunding police or so, they're just looking for something to give them ammunition in their cause, and not at all about, fixing things or reforming things or helping anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered the the Minneapolis story where they're voting to disband the police, and even they have absolutely no idea. They've said it. The councilwoman has come forward and said that we don't know what's going to happen if you call 911 because your house is being broken into. We don't know who's going to answer this call, and yet they still voted to disband the police department with absolutely no contingency effort put into effect or even an idea in their heads. It's such a poor reasoning, and they're looking for something to be angry about, but it's the wrong thing and it's the wrong solution, and it's going to lead to a lot of tragedy across the US.
It does, and here's the part that really bothers me. Um, the people in, council members, mayors, these are the people who are voted for to give at least the foundations and essential rights and needs of everyone in their society. They're not there to become partisan politicians who just write a blank check to do something. When we are dealing with the um, elected officials who are just ideologues at this moment. They're not even debating or discussing. They just made their mind already. They just want to do it. What's what kind of message we give to society or their voters or other voters?
It's really unfortunate because it sends the message that we are standing for a certain group of politically minded people, but not for the other. And dissent is not welcome, just as it is in journalism. It's unfortunate because they're completely ignoring the other half of the population that disagrees that banning the police is a good idea. And they're really not taking time to analyze the solutions in a more broader context and allow for different ideas and different ways to better policing.
No, I did journalism in 3 different continents. I covered wars in Middle East. I did journalism in Europe. People have no idea how great medias are inside the United States. The freedom that they get, it's unbelievable. I don't know how they be this much. How could they be this much manipulated to think that we have to. There's no voice for us, so we have to shut down all the other voices. I don't get it. Really, I don't get it.
Absolutely, especially since these protest groups have aligned themselves with a more left ideology and a left side of thinking, and the mainstream media is left. It is democratic. It absolutely doesn't represent conservative views at all. So they're getting mass coverage, and most of these people agree with what they're saying. So the idea that they're alone, that they're facing outcastment as some kind of radical fringe group is just so off base and wrong.
Yeah, the other thing is that, again, one of the foundations, you have to have 50-50 perspectives in your story. You have to have a two sides. And if a media organization doesn't care about the 50, it just goes 100, it's not even a media anymore. We have to come up with a term or something to call them, because then we are getting, a little bit in a illusion that, we are dealing with media, but this is not media. It's a very different thing we are dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen such polarization in the US recently that it has affected pretty much every area of our lives, from our work to our dinner tables. Politics has taken such a front seat that there is no room for dissent no matter where you're having the conversation.
What's next for you, Adriana?
I'm going to continue writing, continue reporting journalism at LifeSet, and I'm going to continue speaking my mind and saying what I believe to be the truth, whether or not it's a popular opinion.
Perfect. Um, any place to start? Any initial plans? Anywhere that we could follow your work?
Definitely on LifeSet, definitely continuing on LifeSet. So if you're interested in viewing more of my work, go to that website. I'm also a correspondent for Campus Reform, and I'm still looking and open to new writing opportunities. So I guess you'll have to stay tuned to see what I do next because even I'm not sure.
That's fair enough. We wish you the best. Again, it's bizarre that this happens again in a college campus in a journalism school. Bizarre, unbelievable, bizarre. And hoping makes you stronger and gives you lots of more. It's gives you another experience, and hopefully we see you stronger and more dedicated in true journalism.
Absolutely. This, if anything, has made me more determined to continue finding the truth, whether or not it's popular. So you haven't seen the last of me.
That's very good to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.